Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Coach Replay Show. I'm your host today, Corey Camp. And I have on the line with us, Chrissy Beltran. Chrissy and I have done some work together in the past. I've been on her podcast a few times, and I'm excited to finally have her on our show. So, Chrissy, welcome. Tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you so much. I'm excited to be here too because you've been such a wonderful guest on my podcast. It's one of my favorite episodes of all time.
Oh,
Really, it is. I tell people this all the time. So I'm Chrissy Beltran, and I live in El Paso, Texas. I started out as an elementary teacher, and then I became an instructional coach. And when my kids were born, I decided to work from home. So I actually coach teachers at different schools, but I mostly do work supporting instructional coaches now. And so I have my site, buzzingwithmissb.com. You can check it out. And the podcast, Buzzing with Miss B, the coaching podcast.
yeah. Buzzing with Miss B is a fun title, but it's also a really valuable podcast and website. You've got so many things. In fact, I was on there last week before we kind of met to plan out our show. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, why is this not in my stuff? So I started. It's now in my favorites at my toolbar because you do have so many great things and some amazing guests. So it's exciting to be able to share that resource with our audience as well. So be sure to download the notes and takeaways for today's episode, y'all. That's how you'll be able to figure out how you can follow, like, and subscribe Buzzing with Miss B yourself. So
thank you so much. Yeah, I'm starting the fourth season. It's already, just barely underway. So it's really exciting.
I know. Yeah. Isn't it? We were talking about how crazy it is that we've been doing this for so many seasons now. It just kind of started out as a small idea for us here at the Coach Replay Show, and we are in our fourth season this year. So it's exciting.
It is
exciting. So, well, you're here today to talk with us a little bit about PLCs, which, I talk with some coaches and they're like, oh, that's not my job. Not many. I'm like, oh, really? That's surprising. Because for many, it is a part of their job. And it's also something that, I remember as a teacher, and then in the districts that I consult and work in, the PLC is either a loved word in time and space, or it's a 4-letter word.
Yeah.
And not a very meaningful use of their time and space, at least how it's interpreted. So we're going to talk today about, how we can really add value to the PLC, kind of make it really what it's supposed to be, and how do we structure purposeful, collaborative, and relevant PLCs as a coach. So where do you want to start? Do we want to start with just kind of what PLCs are supposed to be, maybe?
Sure. And I think that that's probably a big challenge, is that a lot of people have not experienced a great PLC themselves. Like when I was a teacher, that was the year the PLC book came out, and everybody was like, wow, this is amazing.
PLCs, right? We should do it. It's supposed to have a lot of that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And we were learning about norming and performing and conforming and all this stuff. And it was just, all this pie in the sky stuff. But then whenever we actually sat down for PLC, our principal literally read us the newsletter.
Ooh. Yeah.
And I think that a lot of people have sat through those PLCs. And so they're like, okay, well, what is it supposed to be? So that's why it's a 4-letter word. It is absolutely a waste of your time when it could have been an email. If there's no collaboration, if there's no discussion, if there's no benefiting from being with your colleagues, then what's the learning community of the PLC? It's not, right? There's no learning community there. And so sometimes I think coaches get really hung up on, and it's just the nature of the beast. They get hung up on like, well, what are the procedures, and what should I do during PLC? And they don't even know where to start. And so what a PLC really needs to be, in my opinion, is a productive, collaborative session in which teachers are learning and solving problems that are relevant to their classrooms. They are figuring things out. They are making plans. They are taking what they're learning and combining it with what they see happening in reality. And then they are coming up with something that they can use in their classrooms.
Right.
That's how it should be relevant. That's where the relevance comes from.
Yeah. Well, and I think you mentioned nature of the beast, right? I think there's several reasons why PLCs don't live up to those expectations. What can we do from here? So there's supposed to be a lot of the things that many PLCs are not, right? It's not just a housekeeping meeting. It is not just this time to sit and get. It's the thing I used to tell my PLCs, and as I work with coaches who facilitate PLCs, is if your PLC only happens, if the L and the C only happen during your weekly or biweekly meeting, that's your biggest indicator that there's a problem. It should be the time that we get a chance to come together synchronously and talk about all the learning that's happened across the community every day since the last meeting, and how we're going to then continue to grow together. But that's not the case for a lot of teachers. They don't think about the PLC until right before the PLC meeting. And, oh yeah, I'm supposed to bring that thing or do that thing. Again, we're really bad at job embedded because we have a hard time stopping that vicious cycle that kind of feeds all the poor practices. Although we know that we need to change them, it's hard. So
absolutely,
change is hard, and that's what a PLC should do, is insight change. So how do you propose, Chrissy, that we do this? What are some of your kind of tips for bringing that collaborative, not directive, the learning, the community back into the PLC?
I think part of it is, it starts with the way I look at it, and it's really helped me, is I look at it as, okay, what are some issues we can solve that teachers are having? And whether you send out a survey and get feedback, or whether you do visits in classrooms and see some apparent issues, and maybe teachers would agree those are issues and maybe they wouldn't, you get all this information, all this data, you collect all this information about what's happening. And then you say, okay, how can my PLCs be structured in such a way that I am meeting teachers' needs at this time? And they have different purposes. Maybe your teachers are not able, like assessments maybe are like this very punitive sort of thing, and it's like a standalone tool that teachers use at the end of the unit, and then they move on. So then in that way, maybe we need to think about data and assessment in our PLCs. And that's something that we could use as part of the teaching and learning cycle, is to help teachers understand the relevance of these things. And because if they're giving assessments and it seems like a waste of their time, it probably is, because they don't have any meaning from it. They're not getting anything valuable. Maybe you're noticing a lack of alignment, and a lot of teachers are kind of doing their own thing, and kids are not always getting the best of what you have to offer. So maybe you need to plan collaboratively. Maybe you're noticing a big gap in a specific content area, such as, I'm a literacy person. So maybe you're noticing there's a real phonics issue on your campus, which many campuses have noticed this. And you say, okay, we need to do some learning, right? So you can have you can have like a kind of a category of PLC. Maybe it's data, maybe it's planning, maybe it's learning. But then you want to think about, what are teachers walking away with that is going to be relevant to their classrooms right this minute? That they're going to say, I am really looking forward to trying this out. And yes, not every teacher is going to be excited to do all the things, but we have to get the ball rolling, right, with the people who are excited, so that we just get started. So you can build that bridge to the classroom by saying, okay, this is a relevant piece of learning, or a tool that my teachers can use tomorrow. If you're looking at data, you want that tool to be a plan that they're going to use to intervene with the students who need it. It's a specific plan. If you're looking at learning, you're learning something, you want them to walk away with an activity, not just the theory. Something they can try out tomorrow. And then you can say, how did it go during the next PLC? Then you can follow up, because they were hopefully excited because it met a need that they had.
I just want to go back to a key phrase that I love, and I want to not steal. I'll totally give you credit, but build a bridge. So then tell me, what are some ways that we can help the bridge become more visible for those who start building that bridge into the classroom?
Absolutely.
Have them do that.
I also love, I just want to say that you talked about making a commitment. And I think that is so important, is that the teacher has decided before the end of the meeting what they're going to commit to. And like you said, the commitment can look in different ways. We were talking about earlier, not everybody's going to be super excited, but the ones who are, that commitment should be honored. And then that's what we come back to the next session. So, okay, we all made our commitments, and I love the choice board idea. I spent, a short time just reviewing the information that you provided me and thinking, where would this even go in my math block,
Yeah.
or all the way up to, what, I tossed this resource and I'm using this instead, or, I used to do my notebooks this way, but I completely restructured it, and this is how we're doing it, and this is what's happening. So then the next session, teachers come back and they should be prepared to share out about that commitment and how it went.
Yeah.
And there are different ways they can do that. They can just verbally share, this is how it went. They could bring work samples, which is always a great way to show not only what the teacher did, but how students are responding.
Right.
And those skeptical teachers, they're going to respond better to student work than they are to a teacher talking about it. Because if a student can suddenly do something that they couldn't do before, wow, maybe there's value here. And you can also use video. And I know Sibme is so good about this. They're just a fantastic tool.
Video.
You love video.
I'm going to slide you a 20 later on for saying video, but no, really. I mean, yeah, that's a great way.
And I used to use it when I was a coach, but I feel like the tools to use it are just so much more available now. Like when I was a coach on a campus, and I can remember going around with my phone and saying, hey, can I take a video of the way we did a whole behavior management program one year. And I said, can I take the video of the way you're lining your kids up for PE so we can share this during our after school session where we're learning more about this? Yeah. And the teacher was like, okay, I remember her saying, well, I mean, I didn't really do my hair. I was like, it's okay.
I would have been like, as long as I'm not in it, you can do whatever you want with that.
Exactly. Right.
Let me fix my hair.
So, yeah. Sometimes it's baby steps, but it was great. I caught little snippets of the way that teachers were doing certain things, because sometimes it's just so abstract.
Yes.
There are teachers who cannot envision what things look like in a classroom, especially their own. And they just struggle to make that leap or build that bridge, right? They say, this looks lovely on paper. I hear you talking about it. Good for you. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
And so we have to give them that visual. The video makes such a difference. So if you can collect little videos, or teachers record them themselves, that's great. But sometimes as a coach, you have to be the one to say, hey, I'm going to come by and record this because you're doing some great things that I know your colleagues would benefit from.
Yeah. Yeah. And so some things I want to mention with that. I mean, you and I have talked about this before when we've talked about the use of video. One, I think it's great. Like, that's a great idea. Like, if in the PLC, you've got somebody who says, I'm going to try this on Wednesday. Okay, tell me what time you're going to try it, because maybe I'll come by and I can help out if you need it, but I'm also going to try to like capture some of that. But also the importance of not just promoting and trying to capture when it works really well, but let's also capture that messy middle part too, that helps those more reluctant teachers who are still grappling with it understand that you can grapple, but still do it. Like, that's okay too. And that's part of the learning community, is that this is not a professional perfection community. This is a learning community where we're failing forward with this together. And I think that's important for the psychological safety of the group, right? To feel vulnerable enough in that learning zone, to continue moving forward. So I think that's important. I think, trying to be there then when they decide to do it. And again, you mentioned like that you like the choice board. That goes back to your first point, that the PLCs are not directive. We shouldn't be directing them. It really is about us collaborating and, oh, Chrissy, I like that idea. I might try that too, but I might do it this way. Like, we can kind of help each other plan through some of the unknowns with it. The other thing that I think you do with it is that also allows more time for teachers to get a chance to experience things firsthand. So video is a great secondhand experience where I can kind of bring that thing that happened back to the present, and we get to kind of view it like a fishbowl. But you could also use the PLC to actually do the activity or have the experience. When I did training on active participation, active learning strategies, my teachers were there doing creating their writing prompts by, writing something down on a piece of paper, and then I turn on the music, they crumble it up into a snowball. We have a snowball fight. And it was important though, not just for us to have fun, but it was also important for our teachers to think about their specific classroom and their preferences in managing that classroom, to understand, all right, I saw those teachers over there, or me and my group were having way too much fun with this. And I need to think about the students who are just like us, that I don't want to do that. And I'm going to give them some extra roles or responsibilities. And I think the PLC time can be better used for those things if we're really focusing on kind of the learning and that bridge to the classroom, like that PLC. Mm-hmm. If we think about how it's a bridge to the classroom, sometimes the first step of that bridge might be that I create that experience for my teachers firsthand, and then we plan, and then we get to review and reflect together. So
yes. Yeah, you say, where can you plug this in? What would it look like? How would you do it differently? And then they make their commitment, and then they go do it. I love that. Another thing, as I was listening to you, you reminded me of something that we did for a couple of years. We had every PLC at the beginning, well, not every, but many, I would have a different teacher model something. So if they had something really fantastic going on in their rooms that I thought your colleagues really need to see this, coverage is a bear, and getting people to cover can be, almost impossible sometimes, especially right now. So I would say, can you model this for like 15 minutes? Just walk us through how you do it with your kids. Actually do it with us as if we're the kids. That's what we want to see. And I was trying to pull certain people forward because they had these great ideas, but they were nervous about being seen in this leadership position. And so if we're trying to build teacher leaders, people who can lead their teams, because we don't always want to be the facilitator all the time, we need to build up people, then that's one way we can do it. Say, let's pull you forward. Look at this great thing you're doing that your colleagues are going to benefit from, and they enjoyed that. They loved learning from each other.
Yeah. So effective PLCs, let's recap a little bit. We talked about them being purposeful. I love the driving question that you started us off with. If I remember it correctly, if I don't, let me know. But essentially thinking about, what are my teachers walking away with, right? Like what's the thing that they're coming out of here with? And then the collaborative, not directive. So how are we going to engage together around this outcome and the bridge, right? Then how does it apply into the classroom, and how do we make sure it does that?
Absolutely. Yes.
I love that. Yeah. What else would you say when we're kind of recapping for folks today for PLCs?
I think you really want to think about teacher needs. So whatever they're walking away with needs to meet their needs and not necessarily your needs. Do you have housekeeping? Yes. And maybe you set aside 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of PLC and you say, look, housekeeping, we're going to get out of the way. Then we're going to get to the good stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
It's just reality.
Yeah.
But we don't want the whole meeting to be, okay, this is all the stuff I have to get out to you guys. I'm sorry, but this is just what, the admin wants. And I went to this meeting and they want me to tell you all this. We need to find more reasonable ways to get things like that, like creative ways to get that out to people, because it's got to be focused on teacher needs and solving teacher reality problems, or else they're not going to find relevance in it at all.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would say, like, if you're finding that you like the PLC is that time for traditionally a lot of your housekeeping things and your reminders, and we know we sent out 5 emails about it, but we know half of our people didn't read those 5 emails. Right. So now we're going to have to tell you all. That's also why people aren't reading emails, because then you also tell them why read the email, right?
Absolutely.
Consider, here's where I'd give you another plug for video. Consider flipping the housekeeping, sending it out in a video maybe. This is what I use Sibme for. I send things out in a video. We can use Sibme to comment on the video. So if somebody's got a question or needs a clarification, or if I want them to respond to something so I know they've heard that, I can do that through that tool, through the platform of Sibme. And then I can just have quick 5 minutes to just you all watch the video. I answered your questions, but anything else we need to bring up before we dive into our PLC. So I think that could be another great way. Like if you're finding that you are hijacking the PLC with other things, but you've got other avenues already, you either need to honor those other avenues or find a new way to do that. And it's not the PLC.
Absolutely.
Easier said
that bulletin, that newsletter that I said my principal was reading. Yeah. He was reading it to us because he said nobody read their email. So then I stopped reading my email. So I would have something to think about during PLC.
Right.
At least I could be listening to this newsletter.
Yeah. If why read the book if I can get the Spark Notes from my friend?
Tell me. Yes.
So
you're going to summarize it for me.
Yeah.
I'm not going to do the homework.
Yeah, exactly. That's the student I was. That was the student that I was when I drove people crazy in the classroom. I'm like, look, if you're just going to say it, I don't need to read it.
Right.
So yeah. Well, I know you have so many other things. You've got other resources for PLCs on your site, right? Buzzing with
I do. Yeah.
So we'll make sure that people can kind of get directed to that. We've got some great takeaways again about thinking about the effectiveness of PLCs, the different purposes, and making a bridge to the classroom. Again, I love that. I love that phrase. Is it weird that I think of that bridge? I'm like imagining reading rainbow, like a rainbow. I don't know why, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. There's unicorns. It's a glorious thing when PLCs are effective. I don't know. Maybe I've had too much cold medicine today because I'm battling a cold. This is probably Corey should probably not be recording episodes with cold medicine. All right.
It gives us hope for better PLCs.
Yeah. It is. It's this beautiful, hopeful picture, and it is possible.
It is.
It's going to be easy.
You
might not have to have some conversations and re-norm and
yes.
And then show people that it is different. If I talk about how I want this to be a collaborative learning space, but then keep reading my newsletter to everybody at the start, then, so yeah. I would love to know, audience, if you run PLCs, what are the biggest things that you struggle with? What are the biggest tips that you have for others? Like, let's really make this a learning community here on the Coach Replay Show. Share with us your ideas, your questions, your tools and strategies. And then again, know you can download them from the notes and takeaways from Chrissy and her notes and takeaways today. So,
all right.
Chrissy, it was so fun having you on the show. I love that we got to reconnect again. I'm just going to have you on more because I feel like we could chat forever. So thanks so much for joining today.
Thank you. I'd love to be on again. I always love talking to you.
Yeah, it's always fun. So, all right, y'all. Well, be sure to like, follow, and subscribe to the Coach Replay Show. Also, head over to Buzzing with Miss B and do the same. You'll have lots and lots of content each week from the both of us, and we'll see you all next week. Bye, everyone.